Well, good Monday morning to you. Welcome to our Monday morning edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. This is a special pre-recorded show that we're doing for you today, and so we won't be able to take any phone calls, but we have got all kinds of information that you're going to love dealing with the thyroid. So one of the things that everybody has to deal with at some point in time. Sometimes it gives you trouble, sometimes it doesn't. So if you're one of those unfortunate ones that does give you some problems, well, that's what we're going to be talking about today for the next 30 minutes. We're going to be talking about the thyroid. And again, this is a special pre-recorded edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. So let's just kick it off. What's the thyroid gland? What's it good for?
Well, they call it the master gland because it literally kind of sets the metabolic rate, or controls, if you will, pretty much every cell in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so
where is it?
Right here.
Right here?
Yeah.
So that Adam's apple thing is,
that's part of the trachea, but yeah, it's right around there.
I've had people say, "Oh, my thyroid hurts." I'm like, "That ain't right where it is." That ain't where it is.
Flaring up back here.
Yeah, right.
But no, it's right here. And if you've ever seen somebody with a really big swollen throat, it's called having a goiter.
Yeah.
And that's when the thyroid swells really big. So it's right here. And if you start feeling swelling, that is a time definitely to have some stuff checked. Mm-hmm. But the thyroid can get one of the big reasons is iodine deficiency. Yeah. Iodine deficiency is actually a huge deficiency that we see. And when we do, you can do lab work to check iodine. We don't as much because the test is not as cheap as we would like it. But I mean, it's like $65 to check your iodine, but we can do it. Mm-hmm. Most people are low. And we're in an area that shouldn't be as low as the rest of the country.
Well, back in the 20s or 30s, or whenever they started iodizing salt, a long time ago, and probably 100 years ago or better. And anyhow, because they knew they had the goiter belt, the mid part of the country, because they didn't get much seafood there and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Cornfields don't produce a lot of seafood. So it's just one of those things. So they started iodizing salt. Well, now you have everybody petrified to use salt. Mm-hmm. Because, oh my God, you got to stop your salt. And so people aren't getting the iodized salt. And those of us who do use salt probably don't use as much iodized salt. We typically use Himalayan salt, even though we do quite a bit of salt.
Or sea salt.
Or sea salt or something like that. So we don't get as much iodine, and therefore is a problem. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, no doubt about it.
It's like I said, down here we have seafood galore.
Oh yeah,
But
a lot of people here don't eat seafood.
I was just going to say, there's those down here.
Totally surprised.
I have a friend of mine. She does not care for seafood at all. She's from down here.
Yeah.
Well,
years ago we did a show with Lauren Cordain. Yeah. He's the one that did the paleo diet thing, and Dr. Cordain was on the phone, and he said, "Hey, you're in Biloxi, right?" We said, "Yes, that's where we're from." He said, "Oh my God, you've got the greatest seafood stuff."
He's like, you're in the best place for
seafood.
For seafood, and he's like, really for the paleo diet, that's a big thing they say is really good is seafood, and we are in an area that you can do it.
Well, I mean, it's like my daughter lives in Shreveport, which you can get seafood up there, but I mean, she says
it's just not the same.
It's not the same.
No.
So whenever she does come down here to visit, I always like take her to get oysters and all that stuff because she loves
his
all
family
that
from North Carolina always says, "Yeah, we can get crab meat, but it ain't the same as when we get it here."
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the same at all. What does the thyroid do for your body?
Well, basically, it tells each cell how much work to do. So it sets that metabolic rate for you, essentially. That's kind of what it does. So it tells the cells how much work to do or not do. And one of the problems you get into when we get into hypothyroid, which is probably the most common problem that we see in thyroid, is hypo, not working hard enough. And when it do that, you're very fatigued, functional, just not going to be 100%, that's for sure. You can have all kinds of symptoms with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, really, everybody probably has a symptom of thyroid. It doesn't always mean it's thyroid, but the symptoms do include dry skin, constipation, weight gain, fatigue, depression, hair loss. So, it's not always when you have those symptoms.
Not male
it's
pattern
thyroid.
baldness.
No, not
We've covered that already.
We've covered that already, right? Yeah.
But there is
I'd be on help with that.
So many symptoms that go along with thyroid. Now, an overactive thyroid, which we do see. We see it actually a good bit, but we check the thyroid a good bit. So, because we do a lot of testing on the thyroid, we find a lot. Overactive thyroid, the symptoms are more of an extreme anxiety, high blood pressure, your heart racing. That can be, and actually weight loss. So that is the signs of an overactive thyroid. and even eye bulging.
Yeah.
You can actually start getting to where the muscles around the eye are affected by the too much
I
thyroid
wonder if
hormone.
that was a problem with Marty Feldman. Remember
Yeah.
him?
I think he's
Yep.
just weird.
From Young Frankenstein?
But
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that the thyroid can cause. The thyroid is so important.
Right.
And like I said, it's not always thyroid when you have those symptoms, because that's the most common thing. We have
Right.
people come in, it's got to be my thyroid. Well, when we do the lab work, and it might not be. It might be, though. So we see it both ways.
Well, I think
The only way you know is to check.
one of the things that we do a little differently, I guess, is when a patient comes in and says they think it might be their thyroid, okay, fine, well, we're going to check that. We're going to check some other stuff too, because other things can affect the thyroid and vice versa.
Yep.
So we kind of look at the whole picture. But we do a lot of testing on the thyroid, like she said, and we do more than just the TSH, because when you start breaking down the thyroid test, a lot of times you go to your primary care or whatever, and they'll check your TSH. Oh, well, we check your thyroid. Actually, the thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH, is really the brain's, not the thyroid. So it's the pituitary gland in the brain telling the thyroid what to do. Now you have to have like a T4, T3, and all those other numbers to see, like, okay, how's the thyroid actually responding to what the brain's telling it to do? It's a little more complicated than just a simple test, So we have to dig in and do a lot of work on it to find out what's really going on. And you can have problems in any area where it could be a pituitary gland that's just not telling your thyroid what to do.
Right. And we've had that.
We've had that several times, many
Yeah,
times.
We've had it many times where the TSH was normal, but they had a severe thyroid problem.
Right.
So you have to do more testing. Now, our regular panels, our expanded panel, our cardiac panel, our super panel, all those panels actually have a TSH, a T4, a T3 uptake, and a free T3, which is way more than what most people get done.
Oh, yeah.
So our regular panels have, extra tests, but there's even more that you can do. So we do have something we have called our expanded thyroid panel, which does pretty much just about, I can't say every test, because there's a few little very different tests that you can do, but it has a lot of testing for the thyroid. When you
We're going to talk more about that.
we'll actually at
probably
the after the break, we'll talk about specifically what our expanded thyroid panel has on it.
All right. This is a special pre-recorded edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. We're talking about thyroid issues this morning. So we're going to take a break, pay a few bills. We'll be right back. And welcome back to this special pre-recorded edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. We're talking about thyroids this morning, thyroid issues, thyroid problems. How can you tell if you have any thyroid issues? What is an expanded thyroid panel?
Okay. It is specifically testing for the thyroid. It does not contain your regular lab work. It doesn't have your lipids. It doesn't have all that other stuff. But it has a lot of stuff for thyroid. It actually has the TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone, which is your brain message to the thyroid. It does a T4, but it also does a free T4, because with thyroid hormones, you have your thyroid hormone and then you have how much is usable. So you actually have the free tells you how much is not bound. So it tells you a total T4, it tells you a free T4, it tells you a total T3, a free T3, a T3 uptake, and it does a reverse T3.
Right.
But it also does cortisol, which is adrenals, which go hand in hand with thyroid. Because if we have a high reverse T3, the most likely cause is high cortisol. So if that's the problem, sometimes lowering the cortisol can actually help with utilization of the thyroid. So it's not just one thing. There's a lot of things to look at on thyroid. And then on that panel, we also do what we call a TPO and an antithyroid globulin, which are thyroid antibodies. And antibodies to the thyroid is when your body makes antibodies that attack the thyroid.
It's autoimmune.
Which is autoimmune.
Yeah.
Which in that case, some people kind of go up and down. And so if you don't catch it on the right day, sometimes you don't necessarily find the problem. It can, things can, your immune system affects your thyroid going up and down at that point. And so if you do have that problem, you've got to do something for the immune system to help regulate it.
Yeah, we see that a lot, actually, more than you think.
Really.
I had a gentleman yesterday, I talked to him, he's in a different state, but we had kind of found his, because what he had problem with was he went to his primary care and they caught it when it was kind of in a bad situation. Whoa, you need some thyroid hormone. So they gave him something. And he was doing okay. Goes back, whoa, we're giving you too much. So they cut his dose. A couple of months later, they check him again. Whoa, you need more. So it's up and down, up and down, up and
Yeah.
down. And so he called, he said, is this normal? He calls us because he buys vitamins and stuff from us, He said, is this normal? No, not really. So we thought, okay, let's check you for the autoimmune problem with the TPO and antibodies and so on. Sure enough, it's Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
Once we kind of got working on the immune system, got him settled down, now he's settled down and they haven't had to change his dose as near as
Right.
much.
So there's a lot to thyroid. It's not just high or low and that's
Right.
it, because so many things affect it. You also have, hormones affect it.
Yeah.
So, that's why we do the T3 uptake. It kind of looks at, that's kind of where you'll see if your hormones are actually blocking it. A lot
Right.
of times are in the T3 uptake.
And that's in male or female.
Yes, and so like I said, there's a lot of testing on that expanded panel, expanded thyroid panel, I should say. So we either can add the expanded thyroid panel to our other panels or just do it by itself. So that is something that we definitely say that's how you know if there is a thyroid problem.
Yeah.
Because it does check a lot of it. It really does check.
And that's really what it takes.
It checks a lot on the thyroid.
Yeah, it takes some pretty intense digging, so to speak, to find out what's really going on, so you can fix it. That's
Yeah.
the key.
If left unchecked, what can maybe as far as you having thyroid issues?
Oh, it can get severe. Now we've had a few. Overactive can cause a severe problem quickly. Because it makes the heart race, it makes the blood pressure go sky high. You can start having heart issues fast with an overactive thyroid. An underactive thyroid usually takes a while because it just kind of slowly happens. The worst case I ever saw was a guy that came to us where honestly, the doctor that sent him to us thought he knew him before. Well, I didn't. So when he come to me and said, this guy needs to be checked, I don't know what's wrong with him. We do a full panel, and his thyroid was severe, but his liver looked like it was shutting down, his kidneys were shutting down. And I said something to the doctor, which was a friend of mine, that I said, well, with him being kind of mentally retarded, he said, no, he wasn't 2 weeks ago. That's why I sent him.
Really?
He was like, it would start it really started on him, started shutting down everything. Now that is a rare case.
It is.
But I've seen 2 or 3 of them over the years where, they start.
It affects them mentally after a while.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thyroid is huge in mental. We should mention that anyway.
Yeah.
Back in, kind of an interesting thing, Broda Barnes, which
Yes.
is a doctor back in the, was it 50s and 60s?
40s, 50s.
40s, 50s, long time ago. He went into a mental institution and he said he wanted to do a study with people with normal thyroid lab work. This is not people that was known to have a problem. Normal.
Looked normal on lab work.
Look normal on lab work. They might be on the edges because some people can be barely in range and they'll say, oh, it's normal. We don't. We look at optimal. But he wanted all the normal ones. And this is in a mental institution. So you're talking about people that were bad enough mentally to be institutionalized. When he gave them all natural thyroid hormone, so there is natural pig thyroid, which we do have, and you don't want to just take it if you don't need it.
No.
You don't want to overtake thyroid if you don't need it. But when he gave them all to them, 50% of the mental problems went away.
Wow.
Right.
With people that had normal levels.
He was checking things like reflexes,
Yeah.
et cetera, because the reflexes will change
Yeah.
with the thyroid hormone being hypo, especially, and even hyper. But he was checking reflexes, doing some tests. Remember, this is early on, didn't have all the in-depth testing that we
Right.
have now. So when they thought normal, it was really kind of questionable maybe, but he realized that, okay, this thyroid works on everything, must work on the brain too. So he went into mental institutions and tried it, and it really worked.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
It was really weird how that one person, I would have really thought they were born disabled, is how he acted.
Right.
And when the guy said, no, he was the life of the party 2 weeks ago, I was like, what? He's like, oh no, quick-witted, funny.
And
I was
sure
like,
enough, he changed dramatically when we got his thyroid.
yes. So he was probably the most extreme, but I have seen in pretty severe cases, I've had other people that didn't quite have the mental stuff that was starting to go with it, but their kidneys were starting to look bad, the liver was starting to look bad. It starts affecting all the organs because everything in your body has to have thyroid hormone. Now that's in extreme cases. Most people just feel horrible. Honestly, people that come in just saying, I can't get up, I can't go anymore, I don't know what to do, feel so down. I feel, we hear it every day.
I mean, and we do, and it's, those things, we always tell them, well, that could be an anemia, it could be a lot of different things, but let's check that thyroid too. That's why it's so important we put it on all of our big panels.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Right.
if you come in and say, well, I want to do a cardiac panel. Okay, fine, we're going to do that.
Yeah, 'cause
and
it
that
affects
thyroid is
the
going to
heart.
be part of it. We're going to check that thyroid because it does play a big role in cardiac health.
Wow.
Yeah.
It really does.
That's something.
Yeah.
We're talking, this is a special pre-recorded edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. We're talking about the thyroid this morning. We're going to take a final break and come back and show you what this week's special. And welcome back to the special pre-recorded edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. And let's go ahead and look at what the special is for the week. And
it's that thyroid panel that we talked about. This is the expanded thyroid panel. And normally it's $115. This week it's going to be $90. And we can even add it to, for less, we can even add that to some of the other panels.
Right, if you want to add it to just a regular panel and do all the extra stuff on thyroid, it's like $70 in addition to the other panel.
Right.
So, but we do have, for $90, you can really check out that thyroid. I mean, and like I said, it does a lot of tests and you can really check it out and see what's going on. Yeah.
Now, a lot of labs charge $90 just to do the TSH. alone.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
So that's actually a really good price.
It is.
It's a really good price anyway. The 115 is a really good price.
Yeah.
So 90 is a really, really good price.
And just to let you know right now, insurance does not cover it.
No, we don't deal with
that's
insurance.
why they keep the price so low on all their lab work and everything. So because insurance doesn't cover it.
And you don't have to be fasting just to do the expanded thyroid panel. It really needs to be in the morning because the cortisol is on it, and cortisol is highest in the morning. So you really would rather do it early, but it doesn't have to be fasting.
What?
And if you take thyroid medicine, let me add this. If you're going to come do it and you're already on thyroid medicine, and we have a lot of people that do that, take your medicine that morning because we want to see what it looks like with your medication to see, what's the problem. We see a lot of people, and I mean, I'm talking a lot, daily, every day, multiple people. They're taking thyroid medicine already, but they still have all the symptoms. And it's because they're not converting the T4 into T3 properly. And if it doesn't convert into T3 and you don't have as much usable thyroid, then you really don't, you still have all the symptoms. And we hear that, I mean,
constantly.
Day in, day out, every day, all of us. So we have multiple cases a day of that. So even if you're already on thyroid medicine and you say, well, they tell me it looks good, getting extra stuff checked can definitely, and a lot of times it will add a little bit of T3 to what you're taking already. Not instead of your medication, but in addition. So always take your medication if you do take thyroid, to check your thyroid, because you just want to see, we want to see what it looks like with what you're doing daily.
Right.
Yeah.
What nutrients are important?
Well, iodine's a biggie. I mean, we talked about that just a little bit ago, but there's others.
Yeah, tyrosine.
Yeah.
In order to make thyroxine, which is T4, your body has to have iodine and tyrosine. And tyrosine is an amino acid. So tyrosine is very important. Selenium is very important. Selenium affects the conversion of T4 to T3. So that's one that is very important, is selenium. A lot of things affect it, and hormones affect it. So that's one of the things we can see when we
Can diet affect it? I mean, that's
Oh
one of the
yeah,
things we talk about
one
a
of the
lot
big
times
things
the diet.
is cruciferous vegetables.
What?
Cruciferous vegetables that are
those things.
raw cruciferous vegetables, which is cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, stuff like that. If it's raw, it really does. It's goitrogenic because it does lower the thyroid some.
Okay.
If you do it excessive amounts in, all the time.
Now, if they're cooked, it
Cooked,
changes.
it actually helps.
Chemically, it changes it.
Yes.
And it's not big of a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, to cook some of the nutrients
Yeah.
out of it, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Well, it's not about that. You changing some of the chemicals that are in those
Steamed
cruciferous.
broccoli.
Yeah.
Well, you change
Brussels
some.
sprouts, no.
Yeah, well, yeah. You change when you cook it. You change some of the chemicals
Right.
in that food,
Yeah.
Right.
so it doesn't cause a
And
problem.
back to the nutrients, we do have a product called ThyroBuild. Now, ThyroBuild is safe. It's not thyroid hormone, so pretty much anybody can take it. It just gives you the nutrients you need for your thyroid to work properly. It has your iodine, it has tyrosine, it has selenium, but it also has something, it has bacopa, which actually stimulates thyroid function. So it has other things in it too that's herbal that actually just help the thyroid function better. So it's never going to make you overactive by taking it. It's not one that you can get too much of, but it is something that pretty much everybody can take as the ThyroBuild.
It just ensures that you're getting those nutrients,
The
like that
nutrients
tyrosine and iodine. Tyrosine and iodine are two biggies.
Yeah.
Others are definitely needed, but those are the two biggies: the tyrosine and the iodine. And we see so many people they just don't get the iodine like they're supposed to. You know, the ones that do test it, they find out, yeah, they're really low.
Yeah, and again, as you said, if your thyroid goes left unchecked, if you're having some issues, and especially
It affects everything. It really does. I always
other
say.
things start shutting
now,
down.
one of the big things people don't realize it affects, because when we tell people, they're like, "Really? I've never heard of that." Is cholesterol.
Oh yeah.
Low thyroid makes high cholesterol, and especially if the T3 is lower. Even T3 that's still in range but on the lower end will definitely raise the cholesterol. So when we add that little bit of T3 to a lot of people, they can't believe that their cholesterol goes down so much.
Yeah.
And so people that have a sudden change, they come in and said, for years I've had normal cholesterol. And all of a sudden it's up 40 points.
Yeah.
What could do that? And I always say you got to check your thyroid. I mean, you got
That's
to
what
check
happened
the
to me.
thyroid.
I was in my 40s,
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
So,
Is
but
it-
that is,
all of a sudden, man, I had perfect,
Yeah.
120 over 80 all the time, and
now there's other things,
Blood
yeah,
pressure. I'm sorry.
that's blood pressure.
Close.
There's other things that affect it too, but thyroid can definitely affect cholesterol. So if you do have a sudden raise in cholesterol, another reason to come get your thyroid checked.
Yeah.
And more than just the TSH, like we talked about before. TSH alone don't show you.
Okay.
Yep.
And don't forget that's the special for the week.
Yep.
It's
Right.
normally $115 and it's only $90.
Right.
To get your the thyroid checked.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a lot of lab work for $90. It really is.
You know, the thing is this, a lot of people say, well, man, that's awful. Let me tell you what, when your life depends on it,
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that, you should not be chintzy on, is, taking care of your health, because,
We always say it's an investment because,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing you can't get back is your health when it gets too bad. When it gets really bad, it's not good.
Yeah. It is an investment. It really is.
well, I mean, that's just like the little saying that y'all have on your commercials about
Yep.
your health.
Yeah.
Your health is the best investment of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Greatest
Exactly.
investment of your life, and
Is
being
your health.
important. You want to definitely stay around. I mean, you hear of people being in their, in their 90s and 100 years old and things like that, and still going strong. And,
Yeah.
because they have.
And you want to still live longer, but be healthy when you do.
Be
Not
functional.
just live longer.
Right. Yeah.
Be
Right.
functional.
Exactly.
So it's more about being functional and being able to, and that's another thing about thyroid is as people age, many people we see in their 80s and 90s that come in and they all of a sudden just don't feel good, and then they were like, you're just getting old. And I'm like, and it's a lot of times it's the thyroid, because the thyroid gland it's one of the ones that wears out. It does. We see a lot of thyroid in that age group.
Yeah.
And it might not be extreme, but it starts getting way lower than they're used to.
Yeah.
So that does make a difference.
Okay.
Really does.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we thank you for being here for this special pre-recorded edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. Of course, you can find a lot of other great information at doctorsnutrition.com. You can find a lot of the past shows if you have any questions on that, as well as on the Facebook page. You can find a lot of information on that. And if you have any questions or any ideas for a future show, you can email me at jtabor@wlox.com. So thank you again for being here with us for this special pre-recorded edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. We'll see you back again live next Monday morning here on WLOX CBS.
For more information on highlighting your business and services on Healthy Living South Mississippi, contact Jim Tabor at 896-1313.